All right, today we're jumping into two encounters that, on the surface, seem pretty simple, but wow, do they pack a punch. It's a story that starts with something as basic as hunger, moves to a very public showdown, and ends with a declaration that totally redefines law and authority. Let's get right into it.
So let's set the scene. It's the Sabbath, the sacred day of rest, a really big deal in Jewish law. Jesus and his disciples are just walking through some fields of grain. Pretty normal, right? Except for one thing. The disciples are hungry, and that very basic, very human need is about to kick off a major conflict.
Because what they do next isn't just about grabbing a quick snack. No way. This simple act to deal with their hunger spirals into a full-blown confrontation with the religious leaders of the day, and it's all about the true meaning of God's law. This is where the fireworks begin.
Okay, so our first section here is about this act of hunger, which really gets into that classic, timeless debate following the letter of the law versus understanding the spirit of the law.
So, to deal with their hunger, the disciples start plucking heads of grain and eating them. Seems harmless, doesn't it? Well, not if you're a Pharisee. You can see the clash right here. The Pharisees look at this and immediately cry foul. It is not lawful. Why? Because in their super strict interpretation, plucking grain counted as harvesting, and rubbing it in their hands was threshing. Both were considered work, and work was absolutely forbidden on the Sabbath. But on the other side of the screen, you've just got a simple human truth. They were hungry.
So Jesus gets hit with this accusation, but he doesn't just dismiss it or brush it off. Instead, he engages them with this absolutely brilliant defense, using logic and scripture to take their entire argument apart piece by piece. His first argument is basically a history lesson they all should have known by heart. He asks them, "Haven't you read what David did?" He's reminding them of that famous story where King David and his men were starving and they went into the house of God and ate the consecrated bread that the law said only priests could eat. This is such a brilliant point. A critical human need, hunger, was shown to be more important than a sacred ritual law.
Okay, so that's his first point. Now he moves to his second, and this one is happening right under their noses. He points to the temple. Think about it. On the Sabbath, the priests are working their tails off. They're performing sacrifices, doing all sorts of things. Technically, you could say they profane the Sabbath, but nobody calls them guilty. And why not? Because their work serves a higher purpose, the temple itself.
And then he delivers this absolute bombshell of a line. He's saying, look, if the priest's service to the temple makes them guiltless for working on the Sabbath, then what about my disciples who are serving me? He is making the incredible claim that his presence, who he is far more significant and carries more authority than even the temple. So, with those two legal points on the table, Jesus then shifts from precedent to principle. He goes right for the jugular, to the very heart of the law, and reveals the true purpose that the Pharisees had completely missed.
He quotes the prophet Hosea, a verse they would have known, but clearly didn't get. I desire mercy and not sacrifice. This one line is the key to his whole argument. It flips the entire debate from being about rules and rituals to being about heart and intention.
So what exactly does mercy mean here? Well, as you can see, it's about the true spirit of the law, not just the tiny details. It's about compassion. It's about putting human well-being first. Jesus is essentially telling them that if they had truly understood this, that God cares more about mercy than about just checking off boxes, they never would have condemned innocent people in the first place. But this whole debate is far from over. The scene now shifts. We're moving from a grain field to a synagogue on yet another Sabbath, and the stakes just got a whole lot higher. This is no longer a private discussion. It's a very public challenge. You can just feel the tension in the room. There's a man present with a withered, paralyzed hand, and the Pharisees, they're not there for the service. They're there to watch, to wait. This was almost certainly a setup, a trap they designed to back Jesus into a corner. They spring the trap. They ask him point blank, is it lawful to heal on the Sabbath? They think they've got him. If he says yes, he's breaking their rules. If he says no, he looks heartless and denies his own mission. It's a classic lose-lose, or so they thought.
But Jesus once again just completely flips the script on them. He doesn't give a simple yes or no. Instead, he asks a question of his own, using a powerful, common-sense analogy from their everyday lives. He appeals directly to their own actions and values.
And this leads to the knockout punch. If you would work to save one of your animals, your property, on the Sabbath, how in the world could you argue against helping a human being? He just masterfully exposes their hypocrisy and reframes the whole argument around the priceless value of a person.
So with everyone in the synagogue watching, probably holding their breath, he turns to the man and gives a simple, powerful command. He doesn't do some elaborate ritual. He just speaks with authority.
The man does it. He stretches out his hand, and in that single moment, it's completely healed, restored. It's this undeniable public miracle, proving for everyone to see that doing good, showing mercy, and healing someone is always the right thing to do. It's the ultimate answer to their loaded question.
But look at this reaction. Was there joy? Was there awe? Nope. Fury. Absolute rage. The miracle didn't open their minds, it just hardened their hearts. They were faced with a truth they couldn't possibly argue against, and their only response was to start plotting how to get rid of him.
And this all brings us to the final, most important takeaway from both of these encounters. This was never just about the rules for a day of rest. It was about who gets to decide what the rules are for in the first place.
This is the mic drop moment. This is the powerful declaration Jesus made back in the grain field, and it's what ties this all together. He's not just some new teacher offering a different interpretation of the law. He is claiming to be its master. He has the authority to define its true meaning because he is its very source.
So let's sum it all up. What are the big takeaways here? 1. Real, genuine human need is more important than rigid rituals. 2. The whole point of the law is to encourage mercy and love, not just blind rule following. 3. It is always, always lawful to do good. And finally, the big one, the Sabbath was created as a gift to serve us, not the other way around. And that leaves us with a huge question to think about, doesn't it? In our own lives, in our jobs, our communities, our systems, what does it actually look like to put people before the process, to choose mercy over the rule book? It's a question that is every bit as revolutionary today as it was in that grain field 2,000 years ago.